Today, I spoke again with Dr. Scott Walter, robotics and factory simulation expert. Today, we talked about the new Starlink Heavy or Starlink Professional version that he just got and how well it works, as well as verbose mode for both Tesla's FSD beta and for the Teslabot Optimus. Let's take a look. Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am with Dr. Scott Walter again. We are going to talk about a couple of things kind of leading up to AI Day number 2 and some thoughts. Actually, I think you were the one that started verbose mode, but we're going to talk about verbose mode. But first of all, you live near Tampa Bay, Florida, so you were right in the eye of the hurricane. How are things today? Or tonight?
So far, they are calm. And like I put on this shirt, simulate before it's too late, because weather forecasting is a form of simulation.
True.
And
True.
So when people ask me, what is simulation? I say, well, you're a consumer of simulation every day.
Right.
And a lot of times we know weather forecasting can get it right and they can get it wrong. Yet despite that, we won't take a flight or a vacation someplace without sort of checking ahead of time to kind of know. So, this just kind of stresses how important simulation is and how it really is in our lives and how it affects it from day to day. So yeah, simulate before it's too late.
Right.
And I am still here, but pondering, leaving very soon.
Right.
It's probably going to get a bit nasty tomorrow.
Yeah.
And over the weekend, I received what I call the Starlink Heavy.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got it installed now, right?
Yes. So some friends came over this weekend and we did an unboxing and we're trying to edit it and everything to show what it is. For those who don't know, it's a bigger version of the normal dish. It's about twice the size.
So it is that much bigger physically. Like it's
physically twice the size and twice the power.
Okay.
And it is a little bit heavier, so we can call Starlink. I mean, officially, it's called Starlink High Performance.
Right.
But I just think Starlink Heavy rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Yeah. And I'm curious to see how well it does in heavy downpours. Now, I wasn't expecting these kind of heavy downpours.
Right.
15 inches of rain or something like that.
It's going to get the ultimate stress test immediately.
Yes, exactly. But I don't know that I can stress it too much because they said it is not hurricane proof.
Oh, okay.
Meaning that, it's bolted down pretty well, but it's just a question of really how well it's affixed in there. It'll be flopping around. So once the winds start getting a bit too high, I'm going to take it down.
Okay.
So I'm going to see if it's able to handle a little bit of weather, and then if it passes it, then I would be interested to know if it works in a hurricane. But
right.
Well,
it's a little expensive to experiment with that, probably.
Yeah, it is a bit expensive. And so those who don't know, it's basically the same monthly subscription, but it costs 5 times more, about 5 times more than the normal dish.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the same hardware that you get with the business.
Right.
That's my suspicion. And
so it's like business hardware, but probably a little bit throttled down for consumer use. But still,
I think it's throttled down. It's throttled down for that. And there's an extra box that comes with it, a new power supply.
Right.
Because the router cannot actually deliver the wattage that's needed for the new dish. Right. They can only do about half of it. So they've got another power supply to kind of boost it. The cable's a little bit thicker. So it's interesting. What they had to do.
And you said the cable itself is like 80 feet long instead of 75, so it's like a little bit.
Yeah, it's like 82 versus 75. I don't know why they made it a little bit longer.
Ironically,
thicker.
I had to order that 150-foot cable because we needed about 5 or 6 more feet. So ironically, that cable would have worked.
Cable would have made it. Yeah,
it would have been perfect for what we needed.
Okay, order the Heavy next time.
I know. And, we didn't have. I'm using the RV version. So when my order number comes up, I will actually order the Heavy. I'll try to switch it out. So I have a reservation, but yeah. So it's Monday, September 26th at 8:00 in the evening. So I actually thought we might be talking during a downpour, so you might be getting some outer bands of the storm. But anyway, so I was wondering how.
We might be getting a little bit. Yeah. So I think we are getting a little bit of those outer bands. And if I'm somewhere in here, I'm trying to get my Google Drive to work. Oh, maybe I can go ahead and do that, and then possibly do a quick little share over here.
Yeah.
Just get an idea of what the Heavy looks like actually up on the roof.
Right. Oh, you took
Yeah.
pictures of it. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, you have to at
You have
some
to take
point.
pictures of it. Exactly.
I take a picture and I'm just kind of waiting for everything to, okay, this is when I go ahead and share my screen here. And then
Sure.
I think I'm sharing it right now. Okay, so
It should, yeah, oh yeah, there you go. Oh, that is, yeah, it's, or maybe Starlink fat. Starlink needs to go on a diet.
it actually does come with a different base. I just
Okay.
reused the old base because you can see I already had it in there.
Yeah.
And so it is able to pop into the old base, but it may or may not be a good idea in
Okay.
really heavy winds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got it bolted down. So I had mine just sitting on the lawn out in the front yard for a while and it was fine. You know, the wind, it's pretty heavy. So yeah, that's cool. So it's just bolted right down and no problem. That it looks like that could stand up to some pretty heavy winds, but I could see, you know, it could act like a sail.
What I'm concerned with is the vibrations that you get right down there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's down here, it's affixed pretty well to the hatch, and the hatch stays down pretty well. So there's absolutely no problem. And the interesting thing is I have to pop the hatch open to get up on the roof.
Okay.
So in order to get on the roof, the dish actually has to move.
So you actually like kind of open it up like that and very carefully get out. So,
yeah, I got out and I was expecting that there would be some sort of interruption in service. And I went back and I checked and it had no problem. It was able to deal with the fact that I was moving it around on the hatch.
That is impressive. So so
it was quite impressive.
I think I know this one has a 140-degree field of view. I can't remember what the regular one has.
The other one was 100.
This so it's significantly more sky that it's bringing in all at once.
Yes, and it's 150 watts versus 75. Now, how much of that is actually for the signal? I don't know. A lot of it, I think, could also be for melting ice. That might be on there. True. You know, I think normally it says it runs between 75 and 150. So I assume 75 is for the signal, and the other 75 would be for melting.
Yeah, which I really hope you never have to deal with in Tampa.
Yeah, not down here. We don't have to deal with that. But that's why I think it'll be interesting if they have a stronger signal, whether it's able to get through the atmospheric conditions when it's coming down. Nothing but cats and dogs.
Right. Because you said
we get a lot of around here.
With the regular version of Starlink, that's been the one problem you've had. If you get like heavy.
That's been the one problem is that when it rains really hard, I lose the signal. Right. Sometimes we're up to 20 minutes because, I mean, that's how hard it can rain here.
Right.
Normal rains, average rains, no problem, but the real heavy ones,
Florida is known for that. All right. So for people, I'll probably put chapter markers here for folks who are not as interested in the whole Starlink saga, but let's talk about verbose mode. So first of all, I don't know, do you want to handle what verbose mode is for programmers, or do you want me to handle that, or I don't care?
Well, I mean, go for it. Usually when you're running a program, verbose mode is when the program just starts giving you all sorts of information about what it's doing that helps you with the debugging. And we kind of came up with this in the context that whenever we're using FSD, sometimes it's getting ready to do something and we're not confident enough to believe it's really going to do it.
Exactly.
Because we've decided that FSD has a problem with commitment. And that a lot of times you're kind of getting out there and you think it's getting ready to go, and then it just decides the last second it's not going to do it. Or you'll be in the middle of the intersection, you're like, go.
Yeah.
And I was in one of these left turn situations that there was a lot of traffic, and I thought it was just going to wait for the traffic to clear, and then suddenly it started to do something. Maybe it was just creeping forward.
Right.
But I couldn't tell if that's what its intention was, because it seemed to me like, oh, is this going to go? Because if it doesn't commit, this is going to be a really bad situation.
Exactly.
So I disengaged at that point, and that's what I said, you know, I wish it had given me a command or was verbose and literally said, because you can't read the text, literally said, I'm going for it.
Right.
And then you go, oh, okay. But and then we thought there were a lot of other situations that kind of come up.
Yeah. So I agree. And yeah, for people who have programmed, you understand what verbose mode is. For those who don't, it's a debugging technique, more or less, where the programmer is giving you a whole lot more information than it would give a consumer.
Yeah.
And currently, full self-driving feels much more like it's treating you like a consumer, an end consumer, even though it's still beta software. So there are a lot of times where, like you said, it's like, is it creeping for, and it does sometimes print that little creeping forward thing, which is a little bit verbose, but it's number one, hard to look down there while you're paying attention to the road.
Especially when you're like this.
And number two, it puts that down there, but then it goes away after a little while. So you don't know if it's still creeping forward.
Have you noticed the text is like that big?
Yeah, it's tiny.
I can't ever read it.
So
it's way too tiny. So it's absolutely no value.
Yeah.
And of course, the real verbose mode is that you'll notice if you've ever run a program and you look at the console, you will see text flying by.
Exactly.
That's verbose mode.
So what you need with a car, of course, is a little bit different. You need it to speak to you and tell you what it's doing.
More of a verbal mode.
Right. So it's verbal and it's like minimally verbose because obviously you don't want it telling you every single thing that it's seeing, or else you would it would just be a garbage of sound.
What I want is I want it to narrate its own FSD drive.
Yes.
So, if you look at any of the, whole Mars, Dirty Tesla, Dr. Know-It-All, when they're out driving along, going ballistic,
right?
Everyone's seen, the Ents, that, as we're going along, we're sort of commenting what we think is important and what's happening at that point. Something is coming up. We see a pedestrian or cyclist. We kind of wonder where this is going to happen.
Right.
And we wish we were getting sort of the same feedback from FSD that it's sort of seeing what we are. So a lot of times we see several cyclists, but we know there's really only one that's of concern. So I don't want to say, oh, I see 3 cyclists or this and that. I just wanted to say, oh, the one on the right, I'm a little worried about. I'm keeping my eye on it.
Yeah.
And if he continues doing this, I'm going to either slow down or I'm going to veer to the left.
Right.
Or that, again, the commitment. You're coming to a stop sign and it says, okay, I'm going now.
Right. Yeah. So that's the kind of, so it wouldn't be quite the level of verbose that you would be used to in debugging a program, but it would be an in-between, so that it would say something like creeping forward. I'm going to make the left turn. I don't see something. I'm going to make the left turn in 3, 2, 1, go. So that you hear the commitment.
Exactly. And it's the whole idea is to instill confidence in us.
Yes,
we know what it's going to do, because we're guessing right now.
Right.
And everyone has said like, yeah, it probably could have made it, but I just wasn't taking any chances.
Exactly. So Tesla, if you're listening, here's a free suggestion. And this would obviously be an opt-in. This would be a kind of thing where you move a radio button or whatever, checkbox or something like that to say you wanted this, because a lot of people would not want that much stuff going on. They just want to listen to their music and drive. But for those of us who are really we're thinking about like, what is this thing thinking right now? It would be incredibly helpful to have it say like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm doing this right now. I don't see anybody to my left. And you're like, well, there's a person left. So clearly you're making a mistake here. So you should probably.
Yes. So what it sees or doesn't see, what it's about to do, what it thinks the speed limit is.
Yes. That would be ideal too. So things like that would be great. And there could be some things with color coding and stuff too, because what I often do is I look at the little blue trajectory line, and if I see a cyclist or a car and I see the trajectory line making an arc around it, I'm like, okay, it sees it and it knows that it has to move around. So it could combine that with, it's like I see a parked car 200 meters ahead or something along those lines.
But still, the idea of the verbal mode is, remember, it's nagging you constantly to make sure you're keeping your eyes on the road. You shouldn't be looking at the display the whole time. I wonder what the blue lines are. It's like, no, you need to have your eyes out there.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I mean, it would be far, far better for it to be telling you this. The art of that would be how much information is not too much information, because there could be a thing where it's just constantly a stream of words and you can't even understand it because it's going so fast.
There must be that it's aware of a lot of things, but there are some things that are of concern. Some objects are of concern that it may be telling you, like saying, oh, I see a car is coming in the middle lane or something like that. I'm worried, or I'm about to brake. Or even that, like a lot of times when you have a phantom braking, wouldn't it be nice if it just told you why?
Yes.
I just saw a pedestrian. And you're like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
So you get kind of an idea. But I do have those situations where a car is pulling over to the left lane and it just doesn't pull over quite all the way. It's just angled a little bit rather than being parallel.
Right.
And it doesn't like that. It somehow sees that as threatening and it will slow down. And so if it told us that that's the reason why, then we'd have a better idea.
Right. Yeah. So just that would be it. It's more the intentionality and probably of the entire scene of the millions of different things it's looking at, the number one or two priority objects that it's paying attention to.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would definitely.
How hard that is, I don't know. Obviously, doing the text to speech is very easy. The navigation system already does that.
Yeah.
It's just a question of what kind of hooks they need to be able to put in there.
Right.
And whether you're adding some sort of complexity or taking away from whatever, the reigning overhead is that they have on the board.
Well, I haven't seen it in a while, but obviously there are earlier pictures. I think Tesla started to be a little more secretive about what's going on under the hood, but a year or two ago, you could see it had things where it was boxing things out and showing how far away everything was. So clearly there is a programmer mode where it displays everything on the screen. You can see. So, I think it would just be a question of pulling out the most important information. And I think people would say like, oh, but that's going to slow the processor down. But really what you have to do is just spit out strings of text, and that goes to the media processor, right? That goes to the thing that's running the display. That's a whole different thing. And so
it could be that they do it the way it's normally done is you just have a list of different error codes.
Yeah, exactly.
And that error code then gets translated into some text somewhere else. So it's not really causing a problem with the FSD itself. It can be done in a different process completely.
How useful would that be if it said error number 5270?
Oh yeah,
it's thanks guys.
Well, we all know what we all know what 404 means.
Yeah, exactly. If it loses track and it doesn't know where it's going, it says error 404. So, but yeah, I mean, I've had that. You have that sometimes when you're running a program and it gives you this long error code and you're like, well, that's great. Thank you. Please tell me in English what that means. So, but yeah, I think you're right. If it just had 30 or 40 or 50, not error codes, but intention codes or something along those lines, communication codes. And it just threw at the media thing. It said, number 15.
And the media just translates that.
Yeah. And the media translates that into there's a cyclist up ahead. I'm slowing down, something along those lines. So that would be great. So that actually brings us to the whole AI Day 2 thing, because I was actually just reading an article where the person was talking about what he wanted to see out of the display of Optimus, which, by the way, is not going to look like a human face. It's just a black, I don't know. It looks like a motorcycle helmet with the mask down. But anyway, on that will be like a bunch of LEDs or something along those lines where it can communicate with that. So some sort of display. And I was thinking about that while I was reading that article. I was like, oh, verbose mode would work really well for Optimus too, because at least with FSD, you have the screen where you can actually look at a little bit of what the computer is thinking. With Optimus, he's walking around and you have no earthly, you don't have like the insight into his brain. So having something optionally on the display that gave you information about what it was thinking and what it was seeing would be very, very beneficial. So I think that something along those lines for Optimus would be really helpful too.
Yes. And I think in all cases, if we're trying to decide whether we have to jump in and stop, or we're doing it because we don't understand the intent of what it's doing. Right. And the more that can bring the intent over to us, the better it will be for us, the more comfortable we will be, because we literally cannot read its mind.
Right. Yeah.
But we're kind of looking for these different signals. And, usually you can tell what a person is doing because we're very good at reading emotions and everything else of what they're doing, that we get intent. But Optimus is not going to have the same kind of, let's say, emotional vocabulary.
Yes, exactly.
That we're used to.
Or it could do something that we interpret as human beings. Like if another human being does this, you're like, oh, it's going to fight me or something. And maybe Optimus is doing that because it's getting ready to pick up an object and it just does that. So it would be helpful to know that its intent was not violence in that case. It's not going like, I'm going to fight you. So, or just misinterpreting what it's doing. Or even more dangerously, if you misinterpreted it as, oh, it's going to stop for me and get out of the way. And what it was actually doing was reorienting, and it was going to keep on going so it collides with you or something, right? So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and the question is whether that's going to be verbal or, like you say, on a display on the face mask. Is it going to be like a Chiron or something like that in Times Square where that's it going by?
It's like telling you. Well, I was thinking the creepiest thing would be if it was displaying what it was seeing, sort of like the FSD display on its face. So you actually are talking to it and you can see yourself in it. You know, you're there going like this. So
I suppose you can do a lot if you make it like an Apple Watch or something like that. That kind of display, you can cram a lot of data in there as well. So someone can work in the graphics. And just so long as it isn't a red dot that goes back and forth and back and forth.
Great. So now I forgot about Cylons. So we can add Cylons to HAL and to Terminator and all. Yeah. So if it's just like a metal exoskeleton with a red thing that goes back and forth, then we can all just decide that the jig is up and we might as well give up. So what did they say? By your command? I think that was what it said. So yeah, so I think that's cool. And Optimus, of course, could also use verbal feedback as well. So it could be displaying something, but for situations where it was a situation where the person couldn't look at it, could also verbally say. So doing this for FSD, like if the AI team worked up this sort of semi-verbose mode for autopilot, all they would really have to do would be to change out not error codes, but the message codes. All they would have to do is change out the message codes for Optimus, and it could do the same basic thing with the same software. So,
yeah, I would think that whatever they put together to be able to perform those functions, they'd be able to do across both platforms pretty easily. It shouldn't be that hard.
Right. So cool. All right. I don't know if you have anything else, but it's just some interesting stuff to think. Boy, interest in AI Day is really ramping up. There's a lot of people on Twitter who are starting to get like pretty
yeah. And I guess, the one thing is that I hope you get out in time, John.
I know.
If not, everyone's going to help you drive across country. There's no way you're not going to make it.
I know. I was thinking because it's like a 37-hour drive. I was like, ooh, I don't know that I could make it at 9 o'clock but I do have the extra 3 hours because of the time zone difference.
You have the 3 hours, or
maybe you
drive to the next airport that you can actually get out of, or something like that.
Yeah. So it looks like we're supposed to get the winds from the hurricane. So our flight out is 9:30 in the morning, and the winds are supposed to arrive somewhere between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Thursday. So hopefully we'll sneak out before the winds get too bad. But I think up in Atlanta, they're not going to be that bad anyway. They might be 25 or 30 miles an hour, so they might not be atrocious.
Yeah, it's just a question of how many flights are delayed for other reasons. And, there could be that knock-on effect, and that suddenly your plane's not there for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, let's hope. I don't know. I did book the flight well over a day in advance just to make sure that we didn't run into any of those problems. But then a hurricane comes along. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. And we're looking forward to you being there. And if there's any Optimus pictures you can get,
I'm going to try to get a picture, like a selfie. I'll just use that. And all the thumbnails from now on will be me and Optimus together.
That's going to be really quite interesting. And I think I finally remembered what it was that someone had suggested that would be a real obvious, easy thing. And that is Optimus plugs in a Tesla for charging.
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty good. Oh, by the way, the person who did the article had the same idea we did, which is that there would be some sort of contacts on the feet for charging. So Optimus would just walk onto some sort of platform with contacts. And I mean, it's not like that's a genius idea because my Roomba over there does that already. So, but it seems pretty reasonable that would be the solution that they would pick, rather than having it have to like, but then again, Elon Musk really likes open buttholes. So I'm still holding out hope that it might plug itself in that way.
Holding out hope for that. So then
I don't know what that says about
I guess the next time we kind of see each other will be when you probably come back from AI Day.
Yeah. And hopefully
we're gonna have to do a breakdown of what you saw.
Well, we'll see the breakdown, but then also I will see you in person for the SLS launch, or if not that, the Florida TeslaCon, which I haven't even talked about. But by the way, both of us will be at that event on the 20th and 21st.
Yes, in October.
Yeah.
But I think Artemis won't be until November now.
Oh, have they delayed it? Did they roll it back into the?
That I think it's because they are doing a rollback, and once they do the rollback, there's no way they can pop it back out there again.
Right.
And the idea of doing October 2nd was kind of crazy, anyways, because you have October 3rd as a crew launch, and I think they've just decided to go ahead and push it back. So it's going to be a little bit later. And speaking of which, you know, the last launch on Saturday, it was able to be seen quite a bit. I know a lot of people on the East Coast were able to see it. Did you see the picture I had?
Yeah, from Longboat Key, right? From off the coast.
Yeah, from Longboat Pass. It was rather interesting that we're able to see that. I'll pop it up here for a second, but you know, believe it or not, at first we just thought it was an aircraft contrail or something like that. And
but it was moving at a pretty good clip.
Time, it's like, oh, wait a minute. It must, you know, it's actually it. And here I am trying to find, okay, where did my Zoom controls all of a sudden go here?
Somewhere in here. There we go. I don't know if I can find it
again.
I'll have to post it after the fact, but I got some pictures of.
So this is what we could actually see.
Yeah.
And I measured, it's exactly 150 miles from the launch pad to that point, and we're looking in the correct direction. And it was at like 7:33.
Right.
And then the launch was at 7:32.
Yeah.
And you know, it kept on going up. Our sun had just set, so for some reason it was able to illuminate the contrails that it's making going on up.
Yeah.
And we saw what looked like a flash of the reentry burn.
Really?
Yes.
That's cool.
So that I'm thinking, wow, we could actually see Artemis from here if we could see this. Of course, you don't get the rumble.
Yeah, you kind of don't get like the big effect for it. So
yeah, and I don't think there were that many people out there that were aware of what was going on.
Right.
We just happened to be pointing in the right direction. It was like, oh yeah, there was a launch right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And quickly we're streaming. It's like, yep, it went up.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am trying to find, hold on a sec. I'm never going to find it because it's not Los Angeles. It was actually Manhattan Beach. Yeah, of course. Anyway, I'll put this picture up. It's absolutely fantastic. It was the first rocket launch I ever saw, not up close, but from a distance. And it was a Vandenberg Air Force Base launch, and it took off right after sunset. So as the rocket got up, it was completely in the sun, and you could actually see the individual the cold gas thrusters and things like that, even from the huge distance that you were away.
You can see that. I saw that one time down in Miami on a SpaceX launch. And again, no one was aware of it, but you can see the jellyfish. So even it was arching over.
Exactly.
It was one of those sunset kind of launches.
Right.
And New England saw a lot of it for the same reason. It was just perfect conditions. It had just gone dark. It was clear skies. In this case, it was kind of odd because usually in our evenings, we've been getting a lot of cloudiness. It was like one of the few nights that it was actually clear enough across the state that we could see that.
And you had your friends visiting too, right? So they got to see that. That's pretty cool. So that's pretty nice that they got to see, because I know one of them was an actual rocket scientist.
To see the sunset, and we turned around and we started coming on in. I'm like, whoa, look at that. So yeah, that was Tarsiana and Anna.
Right.
So they were here this weekend. They were actually in Orlando for a conference.
Cool.
And so I was like, okay, perfect timing. We come in.
Yeah.
And took a look.
And they clearly picked the right week, because next week would have been next weekend would have been a bad weekend to be here. So
yeah, exactly. And then the whole thing is like, should they stay an extra day or two for Artemis? And it was like, no, they actually got out of town just in time.
Right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All righty. Anything else? Otherwise, I guess we can, gosh, I mean, AI Day is coming up soon. I've been traveling on Thursday, assuming I can get out of here. So
yeah. I mean, all I'm doing is hurricane prep. So I'm probably not going to be, back in my cockpit here for quite a while.
Right. All right. Well, good luck. I'm sure everyone will wish you luck. And I will leave a link to your channel in the description in case people want to see that Starlink Heavy unboxing. You do a lot of test drives with FSD.
We're still working on it, so it'll get out eventually, but in a little bit.
But there's a bunch of things. You versus the Tesla versus the Ents. Tesla versus the right-hand turn from hell. There's lots of on there already.
It still doesn't do that right turn right. I keep on going down there. It still wants to take the right turn, even though I want to go straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, it used to do that for me. It finally stopped doing that with 10.69. It used to try to get into the right lane, which was a turn-only lane, when I wanted to go straight. So I'm happy.
This one is crazy. I mean, I will coax it all the way over to the left lane, and
Right.
I will be in there. And the last second, it decides it wants to dive in there. So it's getting some bad information that is making it think that it has to do that to continue on.
That's very weird. Yeah, there are sometimes you can see when there's like navigation data that's just wrong. And it thinks that it has to be someplace that it really doesn't have to be. And it gets desperate about it. So, all right. Which is, again, why we need verbose mode. So it circles back.
Yes, exactly.
Like if it said, I'm trying to get into the right-hand lane because this is the way that this is the straight lane or something like that, then you can be like, well,
but the navigation isn't, the navigation is pretty clear. It's going to go straight. It shouldn't be doing this detour around this neighborhood to make it through there.
Very weird.
There's just something confusing about that configuration of that right turn lane.
Right. Interesting. All right. Well, cool. Thank you again so much. And everybody hang out and let's see.
So speaking of verbose mode, we've definitely been verbose.
Yeah, we've been verbose. So we're demonstrating verbose mode. So everybody have a lovely day, because this will be tomorrow morning when I release it. So all right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now. Cheers.